Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video we are going to learn about the different if functions that we use in Excel on a day-to-day basis. So these functions will really ease our work, like whenever you have a specific logical comparisons to be made, and based on the comparison you want to have one value if the comparison is true and you want to have another value if the comparison is false. So that's where the if functions really come in handy. This will help us in creating summaries like using COUNTIF and SUMIFS, where you have different set of data or different criteria or categories of fields and you want totals based on each criteria. So that's where these functions really come in handy. And then we are going to learn about one more nested function, which is nested between if and end. So these functions will help us in identifying whether or not more than one condition is met in that specific search criteria, and written out the value based on what if all the conditions are met, even what if even one of the condition is not met. So that's where the if and end is going to help us. Whereas ifs also sound similar, but the thing is ifs gonna search for one by one condition and it will stop exactly where the condition is met and it will throw out the result at that specific condition. It's not gonna run a search for meeting multiple conditions at a time. So that's the difference between ifs and if and nested function. And there's this countif and countifs, where it will count the number of cells that meet the specific criteria in a data of cells. And similarly, SUMIF and SUMIFs also work on the similar engine as countif and countifs. Instead of the count, it's gonna throw us the sum of the values in that specific cells that meet those criteria which are mentioned in the function. So yeah, let's jump into the Excel sheet and see how these functions really work. For this purpose, I'm gonna use the Excel sheet which we prepared using the rand between and the rand arrays function in the last video. So using that index and rand between, I generated the category also, whether it's a general or reserved on a specific on a different random function, and I just paste special the value so that it don't keep changing every time. So here I have taken the student wise maths marks and the sex of the student and the category of the student. So here using the if and the ifs function, we are going to learn whether each student has passed or failed in that specific math subject and what is the kind of grading they have got based on these marks. So we already have a grading bucket over here, if it's 90 to 100 it's an A grade, 75 to 89 it's a B grade, if it's less than 34 it's a fail. So that's the regular criteria which we have given here. So yeah, let's jump into the sheet and see how these functions actually work. So in this first case, whether to identify a student has passed or failed in that subject, I want to know whether this maths marks is greater than 34. If it's greater than 34, he has passed it. If it's between 0 to 34, the student has failed the exam. So let's see how the if function is going to work. So the function is going to be like this, equal to if. As you can see the syntax, the first thing is a logical test. What is the logical test I want to perform? What if the logical test is true? What is the value I want it out to be? And what is the logical test if it turns out to be false? What is the value I want it to be? So it's like this. My logical test is firstly if C3 is greater than 34. So that's what I want the value to be. So let's say if it's greater than 34, I want the return to be as pass. What if the value is false? What if it's less than 34? The greater than 34 condition is not met. Even if it's less than or equal to 34, I want it to be fail. So that's the formula reads as if, what is the condition you want to check, and what if the condition is true, what if the condition is false. So that's how it's going to be. So now it's just extend the formula for the entire set of cells. So that's it. Here it's going to tell me if it's 34 fail. Let's say instead of 34 I give them 35 marks, it turns out to be pass. So that's how the function if is going to work out. Now let's see ifs function. So ifs function, what it does is it will search condition by condition and returns out the value where the logical test is met. So let's say my first logical test is if it's greater than 89. So let's say if it's greater than 89, that means it's between 90 and 100, it's going to be A grade. So let's say if C3 is greater than 89, so then I want the return value to be as A grade. So that's my first condition. My second condition is if C3 is greater than 74, that means whatever that's greater than 89 will meet the first condition and the formula calculation will stop there. Now the second condition is between 75 to 89. So instead I'll just give them what if C3 is greater than 74, then it should be as B grade. And my third condition is like what if C3 is greater than 49, that means like if it's anything between 50 and 74, I want it to be a C grade. What if C3 is greater than 34, so that means it's between 35 and 49, it has to be D grade. And then if it's anything like greater than 0, we just want it to be as like E grade. So that's it. We'll just close the function over here. So we have the function like this, ifs, and we always start by the majority condition. So anything like if it's greater than 89, it's obviously greater than 0. So I have to go on the exclusivity basis. So we have to sort out the function in such a way that the least conditions are met first. So if it's 90, it's obviously greater than 89. So that's where we should start it on the highest order possible. So it's gonna give me it's an A grade. So instead of 90, let's say the person has got only 89, it will be in the B grade. So let's say he has got some 49, it should be in the D grade. So let's say instead of 49 he got 50 marks, it should be in the C grade. So that's how the grade thing will automatically keep changing with the ifs function. So let's extend it to the entire set of population. So that's where, like, let's say in these two cases they got 34 and 30, so it's either fail or E. We just mention it as like E grade. Instead of E, you can just mention like fail as the condition if you want to see. So that's how, like, it's gonna throw it as fail. As we already have the pass or fail in the L grade, I just kept the grade here. So I'll just do a Control Z and it automatically changes to the E grade. So that's how the if and ifs function are gonna help us. So now if we just like jump back to the sheet like which we are presenting over here. So if and ifs, these two are the functions we covered. And now let's go to COUNTIF and COUNTIFS and SUMIF and SUMIFS. So let's say in my set of data over here, so let's say I have some different kinds of data, like one is the reserved category and the other one is the general category. Okay, here I want to know, like, of the total 500 students, how many are of reserved category and how many are of general category. So this is how the function is going to be, equal to the count if, as I have only like one specific condition over here, whether it's either general or reserved. So I'm gonna select my data set, which is T3 to T502. I'm gonna freeze the data as I have to copy paste the same formula for the next criteria, like which I have over here. So, and then my criteria is like reserved, and then press and enter. So it's gonna tell me like 236 out of the 500 are of the reserved. So if I just copy paste the formula to the same thing, so the thing is like the data set T3 to T502 is freezed, so it's going to be the same. But when I move the formula to the 13th row, it will automatically pick AB13, which is nothing but my general thing. So when I say 500 students and 236 are over here, and the remaining 264 are technically the general students. So that's where the COUNTIF is going to help us. So we use the function of COUNTIF. It's useful to count the number of cells like in a specific set of data that meets a specific criteria. So here 236 are reserved and 264 are general. So let's say even further I want to drill down. So let's say like the reserved, and I'm going to just like move it to over here, and then let's have one more reserved here, and let's say one more general here. So this is like the counts function. So what I'm gonna do here is like let's say I want to have like a male female also data in this. Male, female, and let's say I want to have one more as others, as we have like 3 different sex mentioned here: male, female, and other. So the beauty with Excel is like you have to write the formula only once, and you can just like keep extending it to the other cells, like as long as you know how to freeze the data exactly and where to freeze. So let's say I'm gonna take the same thing over here as well. So for the Countif function, we just like left it, but it's like for the total male, female, and other, we have a total of 236, and for the total general we have like 264. So now let's see the COUNTIFS. So now I have to like count based on 2 criteria. One is like the category, whether it's general or reserved, and the other is the sex of the student, whether it's male, female, or others. So the function is going to be like this: COUNTIFS. So the criteria range, my first criteria range is, let's say I want to see the general category T3 to, my bad, T3 to T502, and then just freeze the data, so that like that's where the category mentioned is. And then my criteria is like reserved, I just keep a comma, and then my criteria range 2 is nothing but the sex of the student, which is in H3 to H502. So I'm going to select that and I'm going to freeze that. And then my second criteria is lying over here in the AD, so I'm going to just take that. Oh my bad. And then just press an enter. So it's going to tell me that in the reserved category of the male we have 66 students, and then the female we have 83 students, and in the other we have like 87 students. So if I just do like a quick sum, it's going to tell me 236, which is exactly matching with my Countif functions. So in a similar way, let's just say I'm gonna move the function to over here as well. So in the general male, female, and other, so the total is coming out to be 264. So we have 98 general students, 80 general female students, excuse me, and 86 general other students. So this is how COUNTIFS is going to help us. So the COUNTIF, we can search on one specific criteria, and COUNTIFS, it can search on more than one criteria. And like, let's say here I have given only like 2 conditions. One is on the category and one is on the male. Like you can see for other categories as well, like, and see how the COUNTIFS really work. So let's try SUMIF. So SUMIF is going to be as simple as COUNTIF. So let's say equal to, the formula syntax is like this, SUMIF, and how we have given for the COUNTIF, the range and criteria. Just one more thing which we are going to select here is what is the sum range they want to see. So let's say my range is again at T3 to T502, and I'm going to freeze it. And then the data is in my AB row over here, so I'm going to select that. And then my sum range is in the C column. Let's say I want to see like what is the total maths marks received by the general students category. So I'm going to just select that total and then F4 and then enter. So it's going to tell me that the total 236 students in the result has got 12,019 marks. So let's say I want to see what is the average. Here we have already calculated that 236 is the total count. So we have the sum over here, sum divided by the total count. So that means on an average, a reserved category student has secured 50.9 mark. So that's how like we are going to throw it out here. So in a similar way, let's see like what is the general category students SUMIF and what is the average mark they have secured. So that's how it's going to be. The general category, we have a total marks of the 264 students as 13,604, and the average is 51.5. So that's how the SUMIF is really going to help us. So instead of going to the next cell, I can just go to the end. I can just divide it by directly here itself with the 264. So that's where I get the average of each student. So that's the SUMIF function, guys. And let's go to SUMIFS, how it's gonna calculate. SUMIFS is similar to COUNTIFS, like which we just did, using more than one search criteria. So let's say equal to SUMIFS, and in case of SUMIFS, we are going to give the sum range first, so that like we can give as many criteria as you want to give at the towards the end. So my C2 to C3 to C502 is my sum range, and then my criteria range is let's say I want to give the category first, whether it's general or reserved, T3 to T502, and then just gonna give it over here, like which is in my AB column, and then a comma, and then I'll give from the H3 to H502, which is in the sex of the student, and then here it's in the AD column, so and a comma. So no need of comma over here, guys, my bad. Yeah, and then just close the bracket. SUMIFS criteria, oh yeah, okay, I think we just deleted the condition, so let's give it one more time, so not a problem. So that's it, like we are given the sum range, the criteria range 1, the criteria 2, and let's go to the criteria range 2 and then freeze it. And then what is my criteria 2, which is in the AD column, and then just close the bracket and then press enter. So it's going to give me like reserved male students in total have got some 3,089 marks, and let's say here I want to see what's the average. 3,089 divided by the 66 reserved male students. So it's gonna tell me the reserved male students has secured like 46.8 marks. So in a similar way, like we can just drag the formula to all the categories which we just mentioned here. So it's gonna tell me like the highest average mark was secured by general female students, which is 55.5, and the lowest marks as usual like was given by the male guys in the result, which is like 46.8 marks over here. So as I said, like this is all a random set of data, and even like Excel random is also saying that boy students get less marks in maths. So I think that's a universal fact then. Okay, so that's how the SUMIF and SUMIFS are gonna really help us. So if we just go back to the formula sheet like which we were mentioning at the beginning of the session, like we covered ifs, the COUNTIF and COUNTIFS, and the SUMIF and SUMIFS. And that brings out to a last formula in this session, which is a nested function between if and and. So here like I want to give like some two specific criteria, let's say, and then based on that I want the result to be thrown out if both the conditions are met, one result, and if even like one condition is not met, I want to have another result. So let's say right from the beginning we are saying that the pass mark is like 34, let's say like greater than 34. And now let's say for the result we have a special category saying that 29, that means like 30 is the pass mark, anything greater than 29 is a pass. So that's where the if and function are gonna come in. So that means like the formula has to look for two things. One is what is the category, and accordingly if the category is general, it should go to the C column and see if it's greater than 34. If the category is reserved, it should go to the C column and say if it's greater than 29. So in both the cases, you should throw it out as pass. If not even one condition is met in any of these, it has to throw out the result as fail. So let's jump into the function equal to if, and we should write as end. So it's asking me like what is my logic one. My logic one is if T3 is equal to general, and my logic 2 is if C3 is greater than 34. So that's it. I have only like two logics. And just a second, yes, my bad. Equal to, sorry guys, I just lost the function over there. Equal to if, and my logic one is like T3 equal to general, and my logic 2, that is like C3 is greater than 34. And what if the value is true? It has to be like pass. If the value is false, I want to run it out like one more search criteria, that is again like if. And then again start with an end function. That's wrong guys, just give me a minute guys. Yeah, we're back guys. So if T3 equal to general and C3 is greater than 34, I want it to be as pass. If this doesn't satisfy, I want to go and search for one more function, if and then like my logic one is like T3 equal to reserved, and then my logic 2 is like if C3 is greater than 29 itself. So that's it. And what if the value is like true? If the value is true, I want it to be like pass. If it doesn't meet any criteria, then I just want it to be as fail. Yeah, sorry guys, we just missed to close this thing, the text string over here. So that's it. Like if it's going to tell me like if it's a general and it's a 90 marks, it's going to be pass. So let's say in case of general, I'm gonna say it's like 34. That's a fail thing. So if I just, instead of general, if I just say okay, the first student is in reserved category, it will automatically turn it into pass. So that's how the function is guys. I'll just read it out again for you. So if and my first such criteria, my first check category is like if the category is general and the marks are greater than 34, it's pass. If these conditions are not met, immediately jump to the second function, if and if it's reserved, and if the marks are greater than 29, then pass. If like none of these are met, so then just throw out the result as fail. So that's how the if and functions are gonna help us, guys. So like this is the end of the video, I guess. So these are the different functions which we just learned in this video: the ifs, the countifs, SUMIF and SUMIFS, and the if and end. So as I'm using just an app version, like I just found some difficulty in writing the function here. So but otherwise, like it isn't such a difficult function which we just normally use in our Excel things. So this is it, guys. Drop in any comments, do like the video and subscribe to the channel, and you can just drop in any specific function where you have any trouble or you want any video on that. You can just drop it in the comment section. Thank you. Have a nice day.